All right.
And we're live. Welcome,
We're live.
everybody.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for a new meetup panel organized by the Blockchain Game Alliance. Today, we'll have several speakers on the topic of virtual land, game collectible, or both. For those of you who are not familiar with the Blockchain Game Alliance, let me walk you through a quick presentation about who we are, all our activities. We are a non-profit organization committed to promoting the blockchain technology within the game industry. We have now over 150 members and keep growing month after month. Our goal is to spread awareness about blockchain technologies and encourage adoption by showcasing all the different possibilities that blockchain, decentralized gaming, NFTs, and enable for players, for creators, for developers and their communities to create, publish, play games. We're also strong advocate for diversity and more inclusivity of women in our industry, and I've been running several events dedicated to them. And we are an open forum for individuals and company where you can network, you can learn, share knowledge, share good practices, work around common standards, promote your product, services, or game, and network. So the core activities of the BGA include networking, that's one of the primary things, research and reporting with various working groups, workshops, and publication, representing blockchain games companies, giving more visibilities to all our members, and advocating for blockchain in the game industry. All our members, you can see on this picture, we have over 150 now, and they range from blockchain games company, obviously, but also chain and protocols, press and media, games, investors, esports, development solution, and others. So it's really the whole industry that's being mapped here. And additionally, we'd like to give a big thanks to all our sponsors, namely Animoca Brands, Ubisoft, Galaxy Interactive, MakerDAO, Algorand, Chromia, Matic, AMD, and Mobox. Thanks, a special thanks to them for supporting the BGA. We've been running interviews with industry leaders and video game executives, including Sam Engelbart, Yatsu from Animoca Brands, Frederic Chine, the CEO of Atari, sorry, and workshop on different thematics, including DeFi, DAOs, decentralized gaming, legal thematics. Every month, we have an event that presents all the new members to the others. And we offer also free speaking opportunities to various conferences around the world or virtual events on the topic of blockchain, gaming, decentralization, smart contract, and more. And the women event as well. So we started this month on a series of panels around the topic of collecting NFTs. Today is the second event on the topic. We'll have Mick Morucci, Richard Rivera, Jeffrey Zirlin, and myself as speaker. We are going to have hopefully a very interesting discussion on the topic of in-game investment, virtual land, collectible, or both. And well, without further ado, I will leave Serena, our host for this panel, to present and animate the discussion. One last.
Thank you so much, Seb.
I'll just quickly jump to the last slide where, yeah, if you want to join the BGA or follow us, you can follow us on Twitter, Medium, Discord, and Telegram. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Seb. And yes, good reminder to everyone that they can find us on different social media channels. So today we are here to discuss different types of investment within the blockchain game space and NFTs projects. So thank you all for joining this panel conversation today. So we're going to start with a little introduction about our speakers today, and I will pass on the word to Mick. Is that correct? Can we call you Mick?
Mick is perfect. Thank you. My actual name is Michele, but I understand that's a bit complex sometimes. So Mick is a great starter. Anyway, so yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for the invite. I work as a user researcher and designer in the fintech space. Work with some of the major banks. Alongside that, I also work with many startups and helping understand the users, their perspectives, their behaviors, their beliefs sometimes, and to help encapsulate what are the main user requirements and the grasping requirements for then building initial designs and then going ahead and building technology products. So I'm particularly interested in this because I am part of as an advisor for cryptocurrency companies and also gaming companies. And so I'm deeply interested in both the cryptocurrency space as well as the gaming. I've helped in previous times consult for some known gaming companies like Candy Crush as a consultant. So I'm deeply involved, very interested, and great to meet all of these great panelists today.
All right. So, well, my name is Sebastien Borget. For those of you who are not yet familiar with me, I'm the president of the Blockchain Game Alliance. So I've been introducing all our events to date. I'm also the COO and co-founder of the Sandbox, which is a virtual world where players can build, own, play, earn, govern, and monetize their game experience on the Ethereum blockchain through the use of non-fungible tokens, NFTs, as well as Sand, our ERC20 utility token that we just launched via an IO and listed on Binance last week.
Thank you so much. And sorry, guys, I was on mute. I didn't realize. And Richard, welcome today to this event. It's lovely to have you. If you want to give us a little introduction about yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. So my name is Richard. Most people probably know me by Ronan the Collector in the NFT space. So basically my background is I've been a digital collector for about 5 years now. I started with the Tops apps and then a website called Neon Mob. And I kind of have just taken to digital collecting, and I've been building communities around that and helping some startups and stuff. Recently, I've been helping Cogs with their launch. They just launched yesterday, which was a lot of fun, despite a little bit of friction there. But so that's kind of what I do. I help people kind of build community.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And then we have Jeffrey, also known as G-Host in the crypto space. Hi, welcome to this event.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. So yeah, I'm Jeff, or G-Hose. I'm a co-founder of Axie Infinity. Axie Infinity is a digital pet game on Ethereum. You can battle, raise, collect, and earn different tokens. And yeah, so very excited to be here. I help out on the growth side of things. So kind of token engineering, community engagement, and content creation, things like that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody, for introducing yourself. So we're going to be starting this conversation by looking at some interesting stats. So a couple of days ago, I've released this poll on Twitter asking which type of investments people are looking for within the blockchain games. And these are the results we've got. So it looks like collectibles are the most wanted type of investments and assets within the space, which I find quite curious, followed by virtual estate and art, which got the exact same percentage, and then wearables. Following up on this, we looked then at grabbing the first top 20 projects and how these have been performing from the 20th of July until the 17th of August last week. And what we're looking at here is the total volume of sales per project, which is quite impressive considering that it's just pretty much over the last 4 weeks. So taking these into exam, I wanted to start the conversation by asking you a few questions in terms of what are the key elements to consider when investing in non-fungible and crypto projects. And I'm curious to hear your answer. So we can go around, if you like, from Mick, and then we can start the conversation from there.
So I think if it's a question solely focused on the monetary element, that's a different matter. But I think if you were to invest in something, it better be fun. It better be engaging. It better be something that not only you, but others are willing to spend your time and energy on Often there's a bit of a learning curve with a lot of these platforms, and you want to go where people go. As Ronan described, it's so important to have the community engagement, to have people that are in it, not just for the money. I mean, the money is always a big part of it, but you want people that are engaged with the meanings of the games, with what it represents to them. So always being in tune with what the community, where the strong communities are, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And Sebastien, since the sandbox game is ranked at position number 3, I'm curious to hear from you. What are the key elements that you think we should consider when investing in crypto projects or non-fungible projects?
I think one of the key elements to look at is just going beyond the collectibility of this game asset or NFT, but what is going to be the usability behind with the associated game or platform. And personally, when I buy NFTs in games, I tend to choose items that I know will be useful for me within the game to enable me to progress faster or to win potentially more as I'm going to participate into the gameplay. So those NFTs shouldn't just be things that will going to sit in my wallet, but potentially will enable me to earn more from the gameplay, from the engagement I can put into the game. And this is a vehicle through that. And similarly, since we are designing NFTs and we are making the tools to mint your own NFTs on Sandbox platform, it's always been a key question for us, like what is the value system attached to those NFTs and how does it translate into the specific of our platform? So like what kind of gameplay attribute, what kind of specific feature owning this NFT can enable you behind on the platform, and why would it be desirable? So those are, I suppose, here from the developer side, but also potentially from the investor and player side, the view.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. There's a good number of projects that we see on this list as ranking from 1 to 20. And I'm also curious to hear from Geo's or Jeff, sorry, how you think, diversifying investments, looking at these projects may look like for somebody that is entering the space as a new investor. What would you suggest for them to look at?
Yeah, definitely. So if you're looking at this from, I guess, an investment perspective, first of all, if you're only looking for an investment, NFTs might not be for you. I think NFTs are supposed to be fun. They're supposed to be social. There's supposed to be an element of social capital involved where you're making friends. And I think that's worth more than money in a lot of cases. But if we are looking at it, from also a monetary investment perspective, I think, it really comes down to expected future demand. So I think expected future demand, you want to look at 2 categories. One is kind of more macro specific to the project or even the artist. So you can break that down into quality of the community, quality of the gameplay, or the art, if it's, an artist. And then I think there's the kind of item specific qualities. So that's the, the supply and the inflation, and then the current or the future utility. So I think that the number one thing to hone in on is the quality of the community. You might want to go into the Discord, talk to people, see if those are, people that you think you could get along with, see if you could see those people as friends in the future, and whether those are the types of people that would, collectors, players that would inspire and attract more players and collectors.
Mm-hmm. So you're suggesting that community, it is kind of like what we should be looking at if we were unfamiliar with the whole NFT space.
I think that's a good lens to start with. I would also play the game if possible, or watch YouTube tutorials of the game. Does it look fun? Do you find it visually appealing?
And what about you, Ronan? How about diversifying your investment within this space? Because I know you've been active in different projects, and I'm curious to know, how do you look at diversifying investment?
Yeah,
And
I
what's
think
the
that
strategy on that?
I think that just like with anything, like the best thing to do is diversify. To kind of Jihaz's point, I think that it's really important to do your research, regardless of like. I think that's the one thing I think you should apply to all three different aspects, like whether it's land or collectibles or art. You should definitely do your research. You should find out more information about the game. What the plan is for the land, if it's something like the sandbox. And then with NFTs, like what's the history of the company, like do they actually support their products? Do they have a community that cares about the products? Because that's important. Like if people care about the product, it's going to bring value because these people are there for the long run. So that's really important when it comes to collectibles. And the same exact thing with art. Like look into them, look at their past sales. Like also, especially I feel like with art, it's almost more intimate. So I think if you're trying to make something a little as personal as possible for yourself, I definitely think art and the collectibles are more for that. Or land, I guess, can be if you want to express yourself. But I think there's opportunity there should connect with the NFTs, and then you should also consider the past and what their potential future use cases, especially when it comes to what we're seeing now, which is more interoperability, kind of across platforms and that kind of thing. So if you can, purchase an NFT and drop it on your land in the sandbox, that to me brings more value to that land.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you raised a very interesting point about the fact that interoperable assets will be more and more available among different projects, and how we value those, and how we can see the investment strategy going in that way, and how platforms are actually going to communicate more and more. I know Mick has done an interesting research around the social media engagement and the total volume of the projects. And I would love for him to explain that to us. We've got a couple of slides as well, which are describing visually what that means. But Mick, if you'd like to take on the word now and sort of describing what your research has been.
Yeah, this is very, very simple manual data collection of the different platforms. But actually, before we so it's actually not the slide. If you go 4 slides down, you should be able to see just very rough social media metrics that were collected. Sorry, not this one. One more down. There you go. Yeah. So this is just Twitter and Discord followings for several different platforms, and because my research so far has focused on the art space, then you can get a glimpse into just the art space right here. But what it does show here is that some of the platforms that have greatest followings for both Twitter and Discord, which is a major and very dynamic place where communities meet and gather and relate. So if you look at the Twitter followings, you have at the very top you have OpenSea, Super Rare, Metafactory, and Scent. You also have Known Origin, Makerspace. Whereas on in Discord you have OpenSea, Makerspace, Super Rare, Wearable, Metafactory. So somewhat the same ones. Interesting to see that actually Super Rare is one of the platforms that has the greatest number and total dollar value amounts of transactions. So it's interesting again to see the correlation between social media and social engagement and community engagement with transaction volumes. Companies that are platforms that have greater social media engagement and engagement in general have more going on in the platform. So I don't think this is a coincidence, and maybe this is a bit speculative. There's not much data, and it's just a static view of the last month. But I think it does show the need for engaging people and for making sure that you have a very lively and open community. So in terms of open, you can also see that some of the greatest growth has happened with Super Rare, but also especially Wearable, that has doubled its numbers of Discord users in the last month. So Wearable is an interesting case, since it has literally open borders. Anybody can post their own NFT. And I think that has really, and because it has such open borders, it leads to a much stronger community of people that are feel like they can put their art out there and collect it.
I would also add that Wearable is the first NFT art marketplace to add a native token, which I think has kind of gives stake to the users of the product, and it gets them really excited. And it basically, mainstream crypto users, I think like right now the NFT space, we're very insulated, right? And I think one of the ways that will be very effective, and I think Sandbox is one early example of that, and Wearable as another, is basically creating an ERC20 that is more of a relatable asset to the rest of the mainstream crypto space. I think Wearable has done an experiment with it. I haven't done enough research into it to know all the ins and outs. I know that there's some like incentive gaming around like basically potential wash trading, things like that. But I've now heard of it, whereas it was, I think, like pretty irrelevant before the token launched. So I think that's also been a interesting aspect recently.
I think the Wearable token is really trying to bring in DeFi into the idea of collecting art. Like by rewarding you to incentivize on the platform, you can also in the future participate in the governance, and as in a similar way as we've seen with Compound, Aave, Wi-Fi, and some other. Currently, the Rari token have been taking in value separately from the NFTs themselves, which is an interesting use case of combining NFTs and a native token on the platform. I wanted to add one thing also back to the idea of like community driven. I think like all the projects that have NFTs are essentially community driven from their very core, since they are putting their assets, essentially very often the game assets, into the hands of the players or the users even before they are launched, sometimes during pre-sales. It's more true for games than for art, because for art, you're essentially supporting the artist, but not the piece of art itself, while for game, you can support the game asset as well as the whole game itself by buying those NFTs before, and then as a user, and back to what Gios was saying, like, look at the community of users, because these users, they are the ones who own the asset of the game and that are going to make and participate in the future and the success of that game in a way. So they are like really a whole included part of the whole.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting view, actually, and thank you for sharing your visions on these. I would like to jump back on the total volume slide, and I think that is on slide 21. And just paying attention to the ongoing visually trends of the market. So here we've got week by week what's been happening since late 2019 and last week. And is it interesting to see how it fluctuates and how it's been, dramatically going up and down. And so by looking at this, I was curious to know from you, what do you think in terms of the overall transactions volume, what to expect in terms of like what to expect in the last quarter of 2020, given the historical volume of the market? Maybe Ronin, I see you nodding.
Yeah,
I your vision on that.
Just looking at it, and I'm relatively new to like the crypto side of things, but I mean, I know like the last dip, right? That last drop is solely because of gas, right? Like gas plays a huge part in the and it's a big problem. And I would imagine that if like we lay this on top of like gas fees chart, like going up, like you would see NFT sales going down. I think that it hinders the entire experience. And I think it's definitely something that the NFT space is going to have to get over. like that love of a specific blockchain and start like kind of being a little more real and understanding that we need other options, and there are other options, and they need to start thinking about how those need to be integrated and turned on to keep the engagement continuous. Because I'll tell you what, like I haven't looked at my Zrun horses or my account in, I don't know, almost a month, because you literally can't use that app because if you want to get into a $5 game, it's costing you $20 in the transaction fee, and if you get first place in that race, you're only getting paid $15. So you're literally in the hole $10 to play a game, and so it doesn't make sense. And then you place that on top of NFTs, which the value of NFTs, yeah, there's some that are out there that will sell for $10,000, but the average is less than $1. If you really look at the volume. So it just doesn't make sense. I think that's where you're going to see. And I think that for the rest of the year, it's going to be exactly the same. We can only go as high as gas will allow us to. I think if there was no ceiling, I think if all of this was on one of the other chains like Wax that has no transaction fees, you would see just a continuous, just upwards. I mean, the demand is there. We want our NFTs, we want our collectibles, like we're totally in it, but like gas and Ethereum, like that chain is being severely affected. And I think everyone that you posted is on Ethereum, right? So.
Yes, so we, just for reference to everyone watching, we have taken these stats from nonfungible.com, just for reference. And Gios, I know, and Sebastian, I know that Gas, as Ronnie said, it is, kind of like a big issue for all of the NFTs projects recently. Have you been thinking about solutions or how to resolve this problem or overcome it? In Axie Infinity, for example?
Yeah, sure. So I see gas as a user experience issue. I do think that if the benefits are high enough, then the users will come. Axie has hit new all-time highs in terms of daily active users, monthly active users, weekly active users, all within the last month, which has all been during a time of huge Ethereum congestion. So yeah, I think, and that's because the benefits to playing Axie and the play to earn economy is strengthened due to some things that we can talk about maybe later. But so I think for the first thing that the dApp developers need to do is focus on creating strong enough benefits to attract players. Gas is definitely a user experience thing. Axie, we are working on an Ethereum-based sidechain called Ronin, actually. Which I'm sure Ronan has been heard of. So
I've been tagged a couple of times by the Axie account.
yeah.
They're still trying to get me to like jump in, and I joined the Discord and I'm looking and I'm like, there's so much to take in. I haven't jumped in yet, but yeah.
For sure, yeah. Anyway, so we're working on an Ethereum-based sidechain, and I think our community is really excited about it. And one of the issues, though, for a kind of upcoming or a fledgling dApp developer, you would ask is like, if you don't already have a prior community that's willing to kind of follow you onto a different chain, it could be harder to attract users, right? Because right now it's like, Ethereum adoption isn't huge, but there's still millions of people at least who have MetaMask installed, right? So anything else, any other chain, there's a bit more of an onboarding hurdle, even if once they're onboarded, the user experience is better. So we'll see. I mean, there's definitely some. I think that scalability is definitely a major theme and I think that there are some projects that are taking some interesting approaches, and it's something that we're gonna have to kind of figure out over the coming year.
For sure. And Sebastian, what we're looking here now is the breakdown in the last 4 weeks of the overall transactions in platforms per month. And I'm curious to know also about the gas problem and how you are looking at that within Sandbox. And also thinking about what strategy do you think, gamers and players should apply when entering a new game, thinking about all the aspects we've been taking into consideration, gas included.
Well, I think from the very high level perspective, first and foremost, specifically in the video game industry, we have to focus on like building a fun and engaging game, like something that you want, that makes player want to enter without necessarily having any knowledge about the fact there is blockchain involved or any action or prerequisite from them to actually begin entering into the crypto sphere or the crypto aspect of that game, which means like buying an NFT to start playing or making a wallet to start playing, etc. So I would work and focus a lot of the effort on like, let's make a game that looks fun, that looks beautiful, that wants to get that attract regular player, and let's make sure that all the first step of the funnel from that user experience are avoiding any interaction with blockchain as much as possible, first and foremost. Then once you get those users engaged, retain and engage on the platform so that they are ready to stay and stick, even if there's a little bit more friction inside the game, like such as creating a wallet, such as potentially having to learn new things like what is an NFT, what is a wallet, what is gas even, then you might be winning and converting more users that way than just only focusing from the existing crypto users. So that's one thing that I've been saying for a long time, and we're trying, this is our approach with Sandbox. We're really aiming to enlarge the size of the market indifferently of whether there is gas issue or the Ethereum blockchain or any other blockchain. But at the end of the day, user will not care about what technology it's running onto. They're all going to care about the experience, the fun. Then at the moment, Sandbox is not yet fully launched, so we don't have players. We have products that are in alpha and beta that do not interact with blockchain, like a 3D editor, like a game maker. And what we've done so far is pre-sale of NFTs, premium NFTs like game asset, dragons, etc., and lands. So the patterns we are seeing in Sandbox is quite unique so far. It's really like peaks every once a month or a few couple of weeks when we do run those pre-sale. We're within a very short amount of time, like within minutes. Sometimes we have hundreds of users or thousands of users rushing to buy those lands that we make available. And so far, it ran very. We hadn't had any scalability or gas issue. Like everyone who was fast enough could get his land during those peak moments. Down the line, because we use the blockchain only for proving the ownership, we don't interact all the time with the blockchain for a sort of transaction where you can collect token as you play. I'm not foreseeing a major scalability issue once we are going to grow in terms of number of players, because players, they might just buy once an equipment for their avatar. That's one transaction, and that's it. But we are also looking at what. Well, thank you. Yes, we are going to also look at what the other actors in the ecosystem, like companies like Matic, or even what Axie Infinity is doing in terms of developing their solution for scalability. And we'll probably onboard one of those solutions when we think that we'll be closer to that moment where we cannot scale anymore. But I think we can scale via other means, via other solution, better onboarding, not requiring the blockchain all the time for our gameplay before being confronted to that issue.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, it totally makes sense. And thank you for illustrating it so well. What you
Sorry.
No, go for it.
No, I just had a quick point to make, because I think connected to both of your points, Seb and Jeff, that the blockchain doesn't matter, right? It's sort of the technical infrastructure and so on, and that what matters is the user experience. I'm totally on board with, but to some extent, the blockchain you choose will have impact on pretty visibly to the user experience. So we've talked about before, the gas fees being so massive. I had to take out a Wearable token worth around $1, and I had to pay $20 in gas, right? I mean, that's pretty massive user experience fault right there. So although it is true that Ethereum has an incredible sort of very easy onboarding process, better than, for example, Wax, that it's going through the process of going on Bittrex and buying Wax to buy trading cards is quite painful. But yeah, there comes a point in which the choice of the blockchain can severely impact that as well. So I think it's just important to mention. I think.
I agree, but the truth is also like the moment you choose the blockchain and the moment you ship your product, it's not like it's the same week or same month. Like it's just been years happening. So when companies started to build games, Ethereum looked like at that moment one of the solution, the environment with the largest developer ecosystem solution already, adoption, etc. So now we are seeing more choices in terms of chains and protocol that can address those issues, while that first solution that we chose to build on is facing some scalability issue due to too much adoption, actually. And but I still stick to the idea that users will be chain agnostic in a way. And I use this comparison image very often. Like in my wallet, I have credit cards from Visa, MasterCard, maybe American Express. Maybe I have many of them. And each of those cards I use specifically for one service, one app, one hotel, one restaurant, one flight company, because I get better benefits with it. So I don't think, like, from the user perspective, so many users will be attached specifically that I only want Ethereum games and I only want Ethereum wallets. But it just come to like whatever chain and whatever benefit they get for the product, the service themselves.
Got it. A quick follow-up question on that point, which is really interesting. What if you're talking about art, right? And the artist, I don't know, wants his value kept in a particular, in a safe, stable way, and perhaps Ethereum goes through higher volatility than other blockchains. For example, the Bitcoin blockchain, right, which does have a less degree of volatility than Ethereum. Now, the Bitcoin blockchain has other sorts of issues in terms of adoption and onboarding for users. But I do wonder, will that impact whether the user, whether he's an artist or a collector, would choose to keep the asset in a particular cryptocurrency or not?
I would think that I've seen artists go ahead and dip their toes outside of Ethereum. I don't think that they're seeing enough adoption outside of Ethereum to like really make it worth their time. But I also think that's because it's still so new, right? So like, I don't think that really like the wax community, okay, like they're really into like their collectibles and stuff. I don't think that they understand what's going on Ethereum, and there are some pretty cool opportunities on Ethereum. And then it's like the same way, like that they're not really into like the art as much, but like there are people who appreciate art, right? So it's like, if they knew that they could get some art on the wax chain, like I think that they would be drawn. But it's like, it's that back and forth of like, who's got the most eyes, what chain is in the trending at the moment, that kind of thing. So I definitely think like being versatile, just like we're talking about with investments, I think that on the other end of things, like it's important for NFT projects, and anyone getting into the space should have some versatility there as well.
I think but there's clearly niche communities and there's niche investors. Like if we had like whales on wax, I think we might be seeing a totally different behavior. But as far as I know, on wax, we have passionate users and large community of gamers who are trading collectible or now playing collectible TCG games like Blockchain Heroes, etc. And it seems it's going really well in terms of pre-sales and adoption, which is exciting. But I'm not seeing yet, unless maybe there is some study of large whales collector that have a lot of the currency running on wax and EOS behind to actually sustain such art ecosystem on other chains. But maybe that can change, and it's just a matter of one or two whales starting to diversifying their portfolio outside of Ethereum that it can spark something new there.
Yeah, I definitely think that they're giving it. I'm sorry.
I also want to point out that one of the reasons that projects are having an issue migrating from Ethereum there's an element of trust involved when you're saying, okay, I'm going to build on something like Wax. There's still a team, right? There's still like a core centralized team that could shut down, that could run out of money. We saw that with Loom Network, right? Where some teams were, using Loom, Axie included, and then they suddenly pivoted away from gaming. Whereas, Ethereum is, has a very decentralized developer base. So that is one thing, so that's one of the reasons that Axie, we decided just to build our own custom sidechain, because, we know our needs best. We didn't want to have to trust somebody else, some other team. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I'd also like to point out that there's a lot of basically Lego blocks, right? So we're now seeing the kind of intersection, or the intersect of DeFi and NFTs, and there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there. And, a lot of that is made possible by Ethereum. For example, Uniswap is on Ethereum, right? And so any other NFT chain, I believe, to have, is going to need a Uniswap-like, automated market making DEX on it, so that, users could, cash out their Ethereum to a stable coin, or the token that they earn from playing the game, to ETH or a stable coin. So that's also another thing that app developers will have to think about when they build these kind of, and these NFT layer 2 side chain like chains.
Yeah, I was just going to touch to the point of Seb's. As far as like Wax and like that community, I think that like more people are starting to look at it. I think like yesterday's launch was really big. Like I know specifically the whale community, right? Like, so I've been talking to some of like the admins on like their Discord, which is huge. Whale's community is massive when it comes to Ethereum art like space. I mean, if you don't know about Whale token, are you even in the art space? You know what I mean? Like, because it's huge. They've got $900,000 worth of art in their vault right now. So, I mean, that's a big thing. And I think that more whales are coming to it. I know for a fact that there were some people who bought, upwards of like 700 starter packs in the Cogs sale yesterday. That's a lot. It's $20 a pop. So I think it's,
Wow.
you have to have someone big come over and like Josie, like to come over and like run like a really cool promo in the Wax space, and all of a sudden she's gonna catch the eye of somebody who cares. It's nobody. I think sometimes you need that face, right? You need that person who has enough eyes on them to dip their toes into something new. And I think once Wax can figure that out, I think the Shatner thing was kind of cool, but like his people will follow him off a bridge. So, I think they need to, streamers, they need to get into the gamers, but I do think that, it's just a matter of getting the right eyes on it.
So at the end, is it just a matter of influence? It's a game of influence.
It's a lot, right? Like, so it's like influence, it's community. Like, I think a lot of it is community. Like, I think it's the product. I think you have a good product. I think to Mick's point, they've severely overhauled like the onboarding. It's 2 clicks to get a Wax account. It's just as easy as MetaMask, if not easier. And it is 2 to 3 clicks to buy Wax straight with US dollars now. Does it work across the entire United States? No. But does anything in blockchain work in every single state? No. So like I can't get into that. I can't get sand, even though I just bought my first piece of land, because I'm in Georgia, so I can't get a Binance account. So, there's all these things that like people want to jump in, but like there's a million roadblocks that only affect a small enough portion that the bigger community doesn't care enough to fix it for these little communities that can't access. Once we all have access, this thing is sky's the limit. It's going to continue to grow. It's the future, 100%.
Yeah, those are very interesting points that you guys have shared so far. Thank you so much for having your vision and thoughts about this topic. Something I would like us to, as a recap, talk about is types of investments. In this talk, we are aiming to describe what collectibles, virtual land, or different type of assets are, and how do we think about investment strategy, or if we have any strategy, or as we first suggested, about the kind of sentiment we have when investing in an NFT asset. So I'm curious to ask you, what is your which was your latest investment, whether this was a collectible, land, or else, and what motivated that investment type. So maybe we can go around, Seb, and then we can pass on the word to Geos.
You're on mute.
You're muted.
Oh, let's unmute you.
Muted.
Yes, Axe, you should buy
Here.
now.
All right. So yeah, I kind of think like fit the pattern of like the early access tester in games. So I try to just to see through the experience and how everyone is building his pre-sale, the design of it, etc. I've participated in almost all the game pre-sales since the last year, purchasing at least 1 or 2 packs. I wouldn't call myself an NFT investor because the largest amount I've spent so far was maybe 1 or 2 free ETH, but ETH was not $400 back then; it was lower. And learning from there, and also keeping everything. So I didn't resell anything I bought to date. So just collecting those, and sometimes when the game is ready, I'm ready to onboard and try it out using the NFTs I bought. So that's kind of my experience as a user.
So I'm sorry, you haven't sold any of your NFTs that you bought?
No, well, because I wouldn't know how to value them yet. That's part of the challenge, right? Mm-hmm. If you want to sell something, you have to define what's the fair value price that you're ready to sell it for. And I'm working more on growing the demand side at the moment. So
yeah.
That's an interesting point, Seb. Yes, absolutely. And Geos, which one was your latest investment and what motivated it?
Yeah, definitely. So my latest investment, so I would define an investment as, over I would define an investment as over maybe
sorry,
2 or 3 ETH. So yeah.
Could you just repeat? We lost you for a few seconds.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. So I bought an early ID Mystic Axie for I think around 5 ETH a couple of months ago. So it was low ID. So I think maybe number 15 or so had a Mystic part, which are capped. So it's like special cosmetic skin and counterpart in the Axie universe. So that was probably my last one. I also bought a Crypto Voxels land. It's kind of like in the Axie area a couple of months ago. So just to say something that's not Axie related.
Mm-hmm. And what was the motivation behind those types of purchase?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a collector. So when it comes to Axie, I don't I don't really I look at it as more like I'm interested in kind of having some of the rarest assets. I think I actually joined, when I found Axie, I was just a community member and I started, helping out and making content. So I can't, I also always see myself as also just a member of the Axie community because that's how it all started out. And when I got there, Mystic Axies were the things that everyone was excited about during the pre-sale. So they really have a special place in my heart. And so, so just over time, I like to accumulate some of the Mystic Axies. They have a lot of, kind of sentimental value for me. The Crypto Voxels thing, the Crypto Voxels is a really amazing community and they've been doing cool stuff. And there's always been like, some overlap between the voxel community and the Axie community. They started making like some Axie related areas. So I bought a piece of land in Crypto Voxels that's kind of near one of the Axie related districts or the Axie district. So I want to eventually build that out and add some cool stuff to it. Mm-hmm. So that's more of like a utility thing, right? Like I want to kind of, have some stake in that universe and potentially, use it to advertise either my personal brand or Axie in some way.
Mm-hmm. And
you do actually have land in multiple virtual worlds. You do have in Sandbox as well and others.
Yeah.
On my side, I experimented with sharding actually and fractional ownership. So I bought some fraction of Almas, which is one, I believe, of the early Mystic axes, just to experiment with it and see what does it mean for the future NFT.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah. The shards are really that's a very interesting trend. That also kind of illustrates why like some type of DEX I think is an important part of the NFT kind of infrastructure stack.
And following on to Mick, which one was your latest investment and what motivated it?
So to be fair, my latest investment was more in the art space, and I'm not sure if I can show you.
Yeah, you can try and share your screen if you wish.
Can you see it now?
You want to share screen? Yeah, again, it comes.
Yes, actually, my recent ones were all on Wearable, and they feature all sorts of neon-colored pieces of art by some obscure artists. Although the last ones were all from this creator Kami, and I think for me it's very much a matter of aesthetic appreciation. I very much enjoy the neon cyberpunk aesthetic. I also, very much into the crypto scene. So a lot of the symbolism go back to cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin and Ethereum. And there's an element in which I like semi-rare things. So possibly things that are between 1 and 10, or sometimes even 100. I find that when it goes beyond 100, there is so much of it that it's almost worthless to some extent. So the notion that things have to be not scarce and plentiful, I can agree with to a certain point, because if there's a million of something, then maybe I wouldn't care as much, because I do still value it as a sort of outlook for the future. And yeah, I think that sort of sums up my motivations. But I was very interested in what Jeff said, and I've been looking a lot at. I play a lot on crypto voxels, and it's an incredible platform. And I'd be curious, and maybe could know more about how to purchase land on there. Love to know more about that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your collection. I think it's very interesting to see visually what people tend to collect and what sort of informs their decisions. Ronin, up to you now. I'm curious to hear from you.
Real quick, I wanted to ask Mick before I forget. So you're really into cyberpunk. Did you get any Cogs yesterday?
I missed it, but I did see some of the streams, and
do you have a Wax account?
Not yet, because
I'm going to DM you. We're going to get you a Wax account, and I'm going to send you a really cool cyberpunk cog. It's dope. Wait. You're going to love it. Okay.
That's good motivation. Like everyone creates a Wax account, and you get
if everybody on the panel today creates a Wax account.
We want one now.
I'm serious. Like all of you create one. I will send each of you a very cool cog. I think they knocked it out of the park. The art there is cool. So obviously my latest investment is Cogs. I went head first. I feel like Jeff Jihaz's story is kind of like how I feel what I'm going through right now with Cogs is like I'm jumping in early, like I'm seeing the potential there. I see, I've been in, they do a chat on their Discord for me it's every morning, for them it's every night because they're in Asia. But it's like 9 o'clock in the morning, and they hop in and they have chats with like people, and they let you ask questions, but they also give us like insider information. And so like this morning, and if anybody is here and wants to know, and it has Cogs, this is important, but they like just dropped information that they're going to announce that there is an Easter egg hunt inside of like the Cogs, and they told us where it starts, and there is cash prizes involved, and you do have to hold some of these Cogs to be able to cash in. So to me, like the gamification, that's where I'm like interested. So when a project really like captures me, it's like it captures my imagination. more than anything. And if you capture my imagination, like, I will go all in. I bought a piece of land in sand, and that's the first piece of land I bought because I watched a trailer and it captured my imagination. So that's kind of how I've invested lately. I also, the land aspect, I feel like land is long-term. I feel like collectibles, if you're trying to flip and invest, you're either going to do it quickly. So you're going to pick it up and you're going to flip it as soon as it goes out of sale and make fast money in the first like 24 hours, or you're going to hold it long-term. And it's the same exact thing for art. You either sell it immediately after, or you just hold it and wait for it to appreciate. So that's kind of how I invest and how I've invested lately.
That's a great tip, actually, because everyone's got slightly different strategy. And I think what you shared is an interesting way of tuning in with projects. Either collect them and keep them for a while, or just trade them as you go. So
while the interest is there.
That. Yeah.
Yeah.
As we are concluding this talk, and thank you all for having your vision and thoughts about the space, I would love for you to capture in one sentence what would be your best advice for somebody entering the space, and whether you would advise them to look at land, collectibles, art, or different types of NFTs, and which projects will you be looking at to see before the end of the year? So what do you expect to see in the space? So if you could share your top tips on the collectibles, land, or art, or both, or else, and which projects will you expect to see? Maybe we can start from Seb and following around everyone.
I think it's quite an exciting time seeing that so many new games, so many collectibles are launching and are selling out so fast. It shows like there's still demand and newcomers into the space, which is exciting. Of course, I'm super excited to launch by the end of this year the sandbox finally, after over 2 years of work with our team. So this first beta version, and see what all the creators who bought those land are going to come up with. So all the creativity, I believe we are some sort of creativity engine where people will be able to express themselves, put content using the voxel, using all the different value mechanics that we've built with our NFTs. And I will be just so joyful visiting those games, those experiences in lands that they'll be making. And that's one of the things that excites me the most. Of course, there's many other actors in the space that are preparing quite cool things. I guess Gio's going to talk about what's coming next for Axie also. And it's good to have games with players, with playable features finally, and with exciting content launching all the time. That means that in the industry, things are happening, things are accelerating. So it's good momentum.
And Gio's now passed on to you. What do you expect to see in the upcoming months, and what is your top tip for somebody new to the space?
Yeah, definitely. So I think a major trend of the upcoming year will be NFT projects kind of learning from the DeFi yield farming, token farming trend, where basically, these projects will start releasing governance tokens or protocol tokens or ecosystem tokens that, give their players more voice, more stake in the universes that they play in. So I think these governance token launches are going to be a major trend. They're going to get people very excited, and we're going to see player bases start to balloon, first from kind of mainstream crypto coming in and becoming part of the NFT space, and then through referrals, people telling their friends, their family about the benefits of these new types of games, these new types of platforms. So yeah, I'm very bullish on basically the integration of ERC20s and native tokens into these NFT platforms, and Axie also has some plans around that. I think Sandbox and has an interesting token out as well. So I think that's something to keep keep an eye on. I think, and I see that the institutional investors, a lot of the people who are kind of trendsetters, are really excited about it, and the users are excited about it. The users have been asking us for something like this for 2 years. When we first started Axie, the main thing that people would come into the Discord and ask is like, is there any way that I can earn Axie token? And we always were so like perplexed. So, like, no, like we don't have a token. Like this is, you can play the game, you can breed more Axies. This is all about non-fungible tokens, but like people just want to play the game and earn some token. So that was a major clue, like very early on. So thankfully we started doing our research into token design, about 1.5 years ago. So I think that's going to be a major trend to keep an eye on. Obviously scalability, layer 2s, side chains, that's all very important as well. And we're going to start to see some teams nail down their strategy for that as well.
There's much to look forward to then.
Mm-hmm.
And Mick, your top advice for somebody new to the space, and what do you expect to see in the upcoming months?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting content coming out. I mean, Sandbox being definitely one of them, major important game coming up. But you also have other games in the space like Neon District and several other trading card items coming up still on Wax. So there's definitely a lot happening, a lot of excitement. But I think I'll agree with Jeff that one of the major themes at the moment is revolving actually some of the things that we discussed today, which is community, tokens, and gaming. But the idea that it's tokens that I think that the example Jeff illustrated is wonderful, which is community members reaching out to you for tokens and asking for the ability to earn them and use them in the game. So I think there's a very strong kind of, if you had a Venn diagram, right, between community and tokens, they would go hand in hand. And it's so important. The way that tokens can be utilized to build community that people can use, can earn, but then can also reuse within the ecosystem. So, for example, the way that Wearable has done it in their app store and in their platform is powerful to one extent, because all you can do is really earn it, but you can't really do anything with it. You can't really earn anything with it or use it. So I think that thing about coins, tokens, communities, earning and using, that's really exciting. So we're starting to see a world in which money becomes social, and in a context in which we live in social networks, essentially. So one of the companies I'm advising for, Moneymail, the main logo is social money for social networks. And I think that encapsulates very much the interesting stuff that's happening now.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing your vision on that and your advice. And Ronin, your last comment on what is your top advice for new people entering the space, and what do you expect to be coming up next?
I'd say probably like my top advice would be just to do your research. Do your research, and the first project that you actually get into, one, don't like go all in. Don't throw every penny that you have in, and two, make sure something that you connect with. I'm like, I don't know, my focus is off, but yeah, make sure it's a project that you connect with. Make sure it's a project that you have a passion for, that you believe in, that you think is actually going to go somewhere and going to do big things. And then for me, I would say that definitely 100% Cogs. They've got a lot of really cool stuff planned, a lot of cool stuff in the pipeline. They're doing a lot of really cool community things where they're involving the community kind of like in the back, like behind the curtain, and they're taking a lot of advice. They're using the community to really get ready for what's coming next. And then I would say that a huge project you need to be looking into is Blankos. Blankos is going to be the first project that I think is going to bring NFTs to the mainstream. They're going to be on consoles. The last time I heard, it was supposed to enter at least an alpha this month, but we're getting kind of close to the end of the month, and there's been no word since. But keep your eye on Blankos for sure. Keep your eye on Sandbox. Hopefully we get a beta before the end of the year. I'm really looking forward to that. And yeah, so I think that's
awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining this live talk. It's been a pleasure to be with all the speakers here and everyone watching. Thank you so much. I'll see you to the next event next week. Thank you to the BGA, all the sponsors, and all our speakers today. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
It was so much fun.
Mhm.